Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Fields, a psychologist specializing in addiction. And lately, I've been talking a lot about sports gambling addiction. This affliction has really been impacting so many people, especially ever since the legalization of gambling in many states. I know here in New York, I've been getting a lot of phone calls from people reaching out for help. And there are some issues that have come about from this legalization, namely what I would define as almost predatory behavior by some of these sportsbook sites where people are getting bombarded with emails day in and day out about special offers or promotions, really trying to egg them on to gamble more and more and more. Because at the end of the day, the sportsbook sites are businesses, and it seems that business is pretty darn good right now. So I talked last week about this test to see whether or not you're having issues with gambling, that you're engaging in some kind of problematic gambling behavior. And today I really want to highlight some strategies for those of you who are pretty convinced that you do have a problem right now with gambling. And a strategy, one of the strategies is very timely because of a new trend that's been going on with some of these sportsbook sites that I think is particularly problematic for people with gambling issues. So first and foremost, you don't want to engage in impulsive kinds of betting. You want to make sure that, first off, you're never betting on more than one game at a time. If you limit your betting to just one game at a time, that will definitely help reduce some of this really impulsive and quite reckless gambling behavior. That's the first strategy. The second strategy is you never place a bet so quickly without giving each game its due consideration. In other words, you're going to take time to look at the spread, or look at the different spreads rather, or the overs and unders, and make an educated guess, because it's still a guess, as to what the best bet for you is going to be. Like, which bet stands the highest probability after you've given this a reasonable amount of thought to actually net you a profit, right? To yield success. Don't make a bet within seconds. Scroll down, see all the different kinds of bets, the different spreads, the different over-unders, et cetera, and really take your time to make an informed decision. Maybe even go online if you're not so familiar with the teams and check out their stats, and maybe even take it a step further and see what some of the sports analysts are saying. And again, always keeping in mind that all the research in the world is not going to guarantee anything. And at the end of the day, it's still a gamble and it's still a risk. But this is far less risky if you're really taking the time to look at the different bets and make an educated guess as to which one is going to be the best one for you. Okay? Another strategy that is super important is don't put a lot of money on any given bet. And that, of course, is relative to your financial situation, right? What a small bet is for one person could be quite different for another person. If you place large bets, that has a high probability of charging you emotionally, whether you win or lose. In a lot of cases, it's even more problematic if you win. And I can address that and talk about that more at a later time. But the smaller the bets, the less emotionally charged you're going to get. And therefore, the less vulnerable that you're going to be to compulsive gambling. Now, the last strategy I have for you today is a timely one, given the new trend that I've been seeing with these sportsbook sites, which is allowing people to place bets live. And what that means is that you can now place a bet on a lot of these sportsbook sites while the game is actually going on. And you will see during the game these spreads change. Now, I am not a statistician, but I would imagine that it's reasonable to believe that this style of betting favors the sportsbook sites. Before the game, right, they are making a guess or a prediction as to how the game is going to turn out. And that is how they come up with these spreads, right? Through their mathematical, statistical analyses, and so forth and so forth. However, when the game is actually going on and the two teams that they are predicting in terms of their actual competition behavior, their athletic behavior during that particular game, when they're actually playing the game, I would imagine that they have a much better idea of how the game is actually going to turn out at that point, because they can actually start to get a sample of the actual behavior, right? So before the game, these teams have not matched up, let's say this year, and they're just making guesses in terms of how the teams have performed against other teams and putting those stats together, right? But the picture starts to become more clear once the teams are actually competing against each other and you can see their performance. And so, of course, at any point during the game, it's still a guess how the game is actually going to end. But their guesses, in my estimation, are a lot better once they actually see the performance. So if their statistical analyses are more powerful and better predictors during the actual game, that means, because the sportsbook sites are always trying to finagle these spreads and conditions so that statistically they will win a majority of time, that then means you will lose even more so than you would if you had placed the bet on the original spread, let's say, before the game has even started. And this is a hunch. I'm not a statistician, so I don't know this for certainty. I want to be clear about that. But as a psychologist, I did take a lot of statistical courses, and I do kind of pride myself on, that ability on a general level to kind of look at things and be able to kind of see them for what they are when we're talking about from a statistical standpoint. And I'm pretty certain that that is the way it is with this situation, that the live betting is favoring the sports books even more. And I say even more because all these spreads, right, favor the sports books. I mean, we know this, right? Otherwise, they'd be out of business. So the sports books win more times than the people who are betting on a whole, right? And this particular style of betting is favoring them even more. So the last strategy I have for you today is a very simple one. Don't bet on any games when they are live. Do not. Stay away from that. And here's the other thing. If you're betting on a game while it's live, there's like this pressure to place the bet quickly when you've determined that a spread is a good one for you, right? Because those spreads change in real time very quickly. And a lot of times, as you're placing the bet, you'll get a notification that says, oh, just so you know, the spread has changed. You still want to place a bet. And a lot of times, impulsively, since you've already committed to the action, you'll do it, not even knowing what the new spread is. And it could have changed drastically within seconds. And then the second problem that's very related to that is when you are doing this style of betting, you're not able to put as much thought into your bets. It's, more pressuresome in terms of placing the bet as soon as you can. And that kind of situation definitely is going to set you up for more reckless, careless decisions. This is Dr. Fields, and I hope these strategies are helpful for you so that you are not gambling at least as compulsively or impulsively, and therefore you are not losing as much money and maybe even winning some money. I'll have more to say about this at another time. Take care, everyone.